Any retailer or store that sells Nvidia GPUs, well, they're literally going into a panic. I'm going to tell you all of the reasons why we can directly examine this to be happening. Let's start off right at the top. Public sentiment towards these companies, regardless if it's Nvidia or the retailers themselves, definitely it's a little bit on rocky ground because the prices went up so high. Look at all these comments that people post. Basically, every single time people say, hold the line, don't buy the GPUs at these prices. People have the assumption, and a lot of times the correct assumption, that Nvidia either sold directly to miners or perhaps scalpers, which were a really big part of what happened last year, were scooping these GPUs up and selling it to the end user, the people that are upset now, at a massive markup. Nobody likes to be quote unquote, taken advantage of in terms of GPU prices, but unfortunately, regardless of the reasons why, that's really what happened. So take the public. It doesn't even have to be necessarily a gamer. It could be a 3D person who uses GPUs for content creation. It could even be an enthusiast, small scale cryptocurrency miner. So certainly the majority of people that feel a little bit burned by what happened recently with GPUs will be the gamer crowd, as at least the enthusiast crypto miners can make some of that money back with their return on investment, as it's called. But certainly gamers will be the biggest market for that. But definitely don't leave out the large group of people that use these GPUs for content creation, 3D work, machine learning. Certainly there is a large number of them, even though us gamers are typically the most vocal because these GPUs primarily definitely are marketed towards gamers, as Nvidia always has. Anytime you see these GPU reviews, it's all those different frame rates for games, how it performs in this game or that game. So we can't really ignore that as well. So public sentiment is definitely, I would say, at a pretty low right now because even though GPUs are back in stock, they're still too expensive. The availability is there, but people don't want to buy it because the new stuff is coming out, and there's a little bit of negative feeling towards what happened during the last year. So this will lead directly into reason number 2 that the stores are panicking. People are not only not buying new GPUs, you can walk into a store, and of course, occasionally people will buy them. It's not like nobody's buying anything at all. GPUs will still be bought. Don't get me wrong. People are buying them, and it's okay to buy GPUs now, even with new stuff coming out. Some of the pricing does seem attractive compared to last year, but in general, people definitely are holding off. Not only that, the stores really are getting a massive amount of returns, the stores that do allow them. Some places have good return policies like, Micro Center, even Best Buy, online like Amazon. If somebody bought a GPU within that sort of 30-day window, in the case of Best Buy, they can give you up to 60 days with a total tech package if you happen to have bought that. Priced pretty good is a Windows CD key. Today's video sponsor is going to be VIP-CDKdeals.com. Very simple process. You can get a Windows 10 Pro CD key and remember to use code CC20 for a nice discount. So a lot of these retailers will have pretty generous return policies, and if people see the pricing drop so dramatically during the last month or two, if you're still within that, most people are going to return it. Even me, I did a video where I got a 3070 Ti Asus TUF from Best Buy. This was earlier in the year, around January, before the prices really started to change, and that was around $949. Now, I was within the Total Tech 60 days, so I contacted Best Buy when the GPU went down to $699. That's a massive difference in the price of the GPU. I contacted Best Buy and they were able to price match because I was still within that 60-day window, and the GPU went down a pretty massive amount. So that's why I recommend it for people that have bought a GPU recently. Check out where the price for that GPU is now. There's a good chance that it's lower if you're still within the return period. I mean, that's one of the reasons why stores are kind of panicking. Everybody's returning these GPUs, and now they're going to have to sell them, maybe at a loss, and the pricing has changed a considerable amount, which brings us to the next point. Many of these retailers, they were marking the GPUs up not as much as you think. Take Micro Center, for example. They would buy it from third-party AIBs. Now, I don't have any inside knowledge or know really how exactly it works, but from what I've heard from people is that they'll mark the GPUs up, a fair and small amount. The problem is the price that they have to buy them at already from whoever it is, their distributors or the AIBs themselves are already very, very high. So you could look at it from their position as well. They have the GPUs there for sale at a certain price, and then let's say when the tariffs went away, pricing went down, and everything in the market got cheaper. If those GPUs didn't sell before that date when the price really started to go down, now they're holding on to something that they paid more for, much like a regular person would, and they're probably going to have to sell these GPUs at a loss. Maybe they're hoping to bundle it with systems, or people would buy other components as well. But that's just something to keep in mind so you don't think every retailer was just basically scalping the price. If you saw a GPU that was $1,000 at Micro Center, there's a chance they bought it for pretty close to that price and they're just selling it with a small markup. Even if that GPU originally is now down to maybe $600 or $700, it just means that that price was passed on to them. So just a little insight that I've sort of learned listening to different people talk and hearing different people have this insight. But regardless, it represents a pretty big problem for them because now they're sitting on a lot of GPUs. A lot of people that post comments on my videos, they'll say that they went into a certain store in a different part of the country and there is a ridiculous amount of stock of GPUs. Now, this has only really been happening a short amount of time. If you walked into most stores at the beginning of this year, even January, let's say, you would see generally empty shelves, or the GPUs that were there were a little bit less desirable or priced really high that not even gamers or crypto miners or scalpers really want them. That's why I pointed out the 3080 Ti, something like the Strix, for a long time. It's a great GPU in and of itself, but its pricing was over $2,000, which was way too high considering the Founders Edition 3080 Ti is $1,200. Nobody wants to pay $900 more for literally the same GPU, just with a little bit different cooler and design aesthetic. So that shows you the problem that has been happening over the last really year and a half, ever since the RTX 3000 came out. Now, it has shifted a little bit because there's so much stock and the pricing definitely has come down, but it's still not low enough that people will go and buy and make everything sell out. So these stores are holding on to these GPUs in pretty large numbers. Some of the GPUs that are priced more attractively will sell pretty quick. For example, if you see a 3060 Ti at a really reasonable price, getting closer to its MSRP, remember MSRP is supposed to be $399 for a 3060 Ti, not $600 or $700 like we saw before, or even worse, $800 plus that we saw with a lot of bundles that you get some keyboard or power supply that you may not really need. That GPU should be much closer to $399. I can definitely see where a 3060 Ti, maybe like an EVGA or an Asus, will be maybe in the $400 something range. It should have a little bit of a premium over the Founders Edition just because it's a third-party AIB. It's going to have a different cooler. So that's always happened. That I don't have any issues with, as long as it's a reasonable markup from that original MSRP. We're talking 20, 30 bucks, maybe 50. As you get to 100 or more, that's when you start to enter into another tier of GPU, and instead of having a 3060 Ti, you might as well go for a 3070. That's something that's really weird to see with pricing in all of these stores as well. Sometimes you'll see like a base 3070 overlap a more high-end 3060 Ti. Typically, it's not going to matter how good the design or cooler will be on that 3060 Ti. Even the inferior 3070, if you compare it sort of in models, it's still going to perform better than the 3060 Ti almost in every single case. So it's weird to see those price overlaps. That's why you have to be really cautious when you go and buy a GPU, especially now that we have a lot more variety, a lot more availability, cheaper prices, but the prices are not consistent. It's not like every 3060 Ti is going to be, $399. You're going to have prices still all the way up to $500 or $600. Some places will sell them closer to that MSRP. So it's definitely a very sporadic thing, and probably the retailers that will struggle the most to sell these GPUs are the ones that continue to keep fairly high pricing and haven't dropped it down. For example, I mentioned that Asus 3070 Ti that I got at Best Buy, $949, and in many places it went down to $699 on Newegg. That's where a lot of people were able to get it. Micro Center had it from between $699 and $729, but then even now when I check Best Buy, it's been pretty much all the time at $799. It's literally the same GPU being sold at completely crazy and different prices. If you look at some smaller retailers, you can still find this 3070 Ti being sold for upwards of $800 or $900. That shows you that it depends on each individual retailer how much volume they do and exactly how quickly they want to get rid of these GPUs. More than likely, if they're still selling it for the higher price, it just means they can't lower it because they paid more than that new low price than the GPU previously was because of the tariffs going away and because of prices dropping way too quickly. That's why, as a consumer, probably the safest thing you can do is, like many people have been saying in my comments, just wait. Hold the line until the market stabilizes more. Even though prices are definitely down, it's still very wonky out there. And some people, if they're not doing research like you guys watching these type of videos, you're not really going to know what's a good deal or not. And there's a pretty good chance you may still get burned by one of these very expensive GPUs that went down in price in certain places, but maybe the place you bought it from, you just were not aware that the price had decreased in that particular retailer. And of course, most people are not going to have too much sympathy for any of these retailers because they've been getting really high pricing over the last year and a half. And people won't know exactly if it's the retailer themselves or the AIBs or the resellers, the distributors. There are many, many moving parts to this system. And to explain how high these prices were, at the end of the day, people are just going to be upset with the immediate thing that they see. If they see high GPU prices, flat out, they won't buy them. And if they think something is coming at the end of this year and you combine that with prices still not being all that great, don't get me wrong, the Founders Edition, anytime that drops, that sells immediately. People still like buying GPUs at sort of their original prices. If you see a $699 3080 Founders Edition, almost everybody can agree that's still a good value today. I don't care if the RTX 4000 is going to drop tomorrow, that's still going to be an amazing value because the 4080 is probably going to be a lot more expensive, more difficult to get, and the performance gains probably not as big of a difference as we're thinking. Even if it does perform really well eventually, 3080 at that price, people can agree it's still great. So remember to leave your own comment. I want to know what you're thinking. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.